Call the November 10th meeting of the Macon County Board of Commissioners to order. I would like to welcome everyone in attendance. A little bigger crowd than what we've been having, so happy to see some attendance and happy to see some smiling and masked faces out there. I can tell by your eyes that you are, so welcome. Mr. Manager?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First order of business, I'd like to introduce to the board our interim county attorney, Ms. Kim Carpenter.
Hi.
Kim is
Now we see what you look like. There you are.
Kim's a partner at the Carpenter and Guy law firm, and she also serves as the Swain County attorney. We're very grateful that Swain County and the manager, Mr. Kevin King, are willing to share Ms. Carpenter with us there for a while. She graduated from Western Carolina University with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. She attended North Carolina Central School of Law, where she graduated in 1996 and was later admitted to the bar. She comes highly recommended, has experience, of course, with Swain County and local government, also knows a little bit about the interplay between counties and school boards, as she sits on as an elected member on the Swain County Board of Education. She has a son and a daughter, Alec, who is getting ready to graduate from the Naval Academy, and Madeline, who is in high school, and I think is going to aspire, a senior in high school, and going to aspiring to be a lawyer one day.
Yes.
So, Kim, I again want to just thank you for your willingness to serve as interim, and looking forward to working with you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and glad to be here. I'd be happy to be of assistance any way I can, and Derek has my cell number, so if you guys need it, just feel free to ask him.
Welcome, Kim. I've had the privilege of knowing Kim for a good long while. So
thank you. Good to see you.
Glad to see you, Kim.
Thank you.
Welcome, Kim. Thank you. All right, we'll all rise. We'll observe a moment of silence, and I'm going to ask our outgoing Commissioner Gillespie to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. All right, I'm going to call our public hearings to order. First, Macon County Transit, Section 5311, 5310, 5339, 5307, and applicable state funding, combination thereof. Welcome.
Well, the good news is we don't have all of those to have to deal with. So when you ask about comments, we'll only have to address 5311, 5310, and consolidated capital. So it is that time of year when we are looking at next fiscal year 22, which we all hope we will be in a different place at different time. But we have to plan, and we are planning for a hopefully much more normal year for fiscal year 22. We are going to be applying for 3 federal grants. One of them is the 5311, which provides administrative funding. The amount we'll be applying for is $203,584. Of that, there's a little bit of a difference. I'm not sure if y'all have heard, but the state evidently is having a little bit of a cash flow problem with the DOT. So we have been told to plan for a 20% cash match instead of a 15%. One of them just sitting back there. So they asked us to plan for a 20% cash match instead of a 15% cash match this year in the administrative. If funds do become available, it will go back to the 15%. However, for the purpose of planning, it will be a 20%, which will equal $40,717 for the administrative and the 5311 grant. For the capital, and please don't have a heart attack when you see the amounts, it's going to be a $549,375 application. And the reason being is we have 7 transit vans that are eligible to be replaced. They all have, they currently have over 100,000 miles in them, and they're due and eligible for replacement. By the time we roll around to fiscal year 22, we'll have close to 150,000 miles, and by the time they get replaced, we should have somewhere between 160 and 170,000 miles on them. So by the time we add propane systems, that'll be a little over $507,000 just in vehicles alone. But again, that's 20% match on those vehicles. The remaining match on that is to furnish the expansion of the facility that we're getting ready to do this year. If you'll remember, in our budget for the current fiscal year, we have a federal grant where we are going to be expanding the transit facility to add a training facility and a transfer station. So this will, about $40,000. So again, a 20% match on the $40,000. So that'll be $109,875 on the capital, and that's 20% versus a 10% match. And again, if state funding becomes available, it may go down to a 10% match. On the 5310, this is something that we've applied for a number of years. It's $165,000. It requires a 50% match. What we do is we typically match that with revenues from contracts or from state funds, our rope funds. Current fiscal year, our rope funds were not made available to us. The state legislature took those. We're hoping to get those restored in fiscal year 22. If that's the case, out of the $82,000, we are hopeful about $60,000 will come from state funds, and the remaining will come from contract revenues. So of that $82,500, we're hopeful that very little or none will come out of cash match from the county.
Now, does this money have to be set aside in this budget before you can turn in the application?
The way I budget is I go ahead and budget as if we are getting those rope and, again, the contract monies. So I can use the money from Medicaid. I can use the money from Home and Community Care Block Grant to match this.
So you can combine that together?
Yes. So I can use other sources.
But you have to show that it's been set aside for the 21-22 budget.
And the way I did this when I did my grant application is I showed contract revenue as the match for it. I did not show it. The only thing I showed from county general funds as match is the $40,717 and the $109,875.
Under administrative.
That was the only thing I showed as county match commitment. And just for your information, right now our ridership's up to about 63% of what we had at the same time last year, which is pretty good, seeing as how we're still in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So we are steadily increasing still in our numbers. Our hours of service are basically the same as pre-COVID. People are going to work at the same time and they're getting off at the same time. Senior center's not open back up. Schools are still virtual. So we still have some riders who are choosing not to ride, but we're still doing fairly well.
But discounting COVID, you'd have had a good increase.
Discounting COVID, we were going to have a record year. So, we have seen an increase over the last 10 years, and we were definitely on target for that. And COVID changed everybody's lives, including ours. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. If you'd like to ask the members of the public if they have comments on the applications, that'll be it for the public hearing.
Sure. Can you tell me what 5307 is? I know we're not.
5307 is for small urban transit systems. It's federal money that goes to small urbans, and the population has to be over 50,000 in those counties. So we are not eligible to apply for 5307. But all of these call for applications come out at the same time.
Okay.
And actually, an Appalachian is in there, and we do qualify for Appalachian, but they kind of roll that in. Appalachian has the same guidelines as the 5311, so it falls under the 5311.
Okay, thank you.
You have to have this in by when, Kim?
December 1st.
Are there any further questions? Thank you.
If you want to, did you get the paper with the questions and the comments that you have to ask? Because it has to be documented in our records, our public
Yeah.
hearing. If you'd be so kind as to ask those questions.
I'll be happy to.
I would appreciate it, so that Mr. Decker can enter those into the hearing minutes. Those have to be submitted.
Do we have a sign-up sheet for the public comment?
Yes, sir. No one signed up.
No one signed up, okay. So I'll ask the questions as requested. Does anyone want to comment on the proposed funding for the Section 5311 administrative grant? Does anyone want to comment on the proposed funding for the Section 5310 operating grant? Does anyone want to comment on the proposed funding for the consolidated capital grant? That being said, I will take a motion to approve.
Yes, sir.
Any comments? Any further comments? All right, close the public hearing. Any further questions? Take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the grant request as presented.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Gillespie, second by Commissioner Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
All right, public comment period.
It's not over, Kim.
I'm sorry. I'm leaving it in capable hands, I
All right, public comment period. James Morgan, neighbor dispute. Welcome, James.
I've got a problem with my neighbor.
James, come on up here.
Thank you. I've got a problem with my neighbor. I talked to the magistrate and they told me I can't do anything until Tuesday. He's claiming that he owns a piece of property. He's denying me access to it, which he doesn't own the property. The other neighbor does. And it's threatened bodily harm, threatened my family, and I just need something done until I get a protective order. He's getting increasingly violent in the last couple of days. He's never done this before. He's always been a good neighbor.
Have you spoken with the sheriff?
Yeah, and Rob just talked to me about it. He said, come talk to you guys and see what we get done. It's getting where I'm scared from me and my family because he's made threats, or he's going to take care of us, he's going to get rid of us.
Sure.
It's kind of
Is there
scary. I've never been through
anything,
anything like
I don't know
that.
if there's anything we can do as a board. Comment, Sheriff?
I talked to him just a few minutes ago, and he was filling me in on it. And I just was talking to one of the officers, and I haven't got the details from them. But based on the information that I've got from him, he has talked to a magistrate. The magistrate wouldn't give a warrant for communicating threats, but he gave him a 50C order for him to fill that out, which I've encouraged him to do that. That'll basically advise that individual not to be near him, harassing him or his family, signed by a judge. And that's the only avenue we can go. If the magistrate doesn't issue a warrant, then we have no way of doing anything. And the magistrate didn't issue a warrant. It was an impaired individual on a lawnmower, and I told him that he could call me later, or we'll follow up with it again tomorrow, and I'm sure I'll get more information. The officer that was working is now off, and I'm trying to get a hold of him now to find out more information.
Okay.
You said they used to be a good neighbor, Jamie?
Yeah, I've never had any trouble out of him.
How long has this been going on?
Just last 3 days.
3 days?
Yeah, I've never had a problem with him before. He's been a real nice guy. I can't get the 50C until Thursday.
Today's Tuesday.
Holiday tomorrow.
Yeah, holiday tomorrow. Right now I'm scared to be away from the house because my wife and girls are there. I don't know. But I hope it doesn't turn into a bad situation. I don't want it to. I'm just scared for the family.
I understand.
All right. I appreciate you guys' time. I'll go.
Sheriff, you would respond if he called, right?
Absolutely, and I would tell him also not to hesitate. If you even see him coming towards your property, go ahead and call 911, get an officer en route. I don't know if the officer told him to stay off of his property today. I'm assuming he probably did. I won't know that until I've talked to him. But don't hesitate to call. I don't care if you have to call 5 times if he shows up 5 times. Once he's been told to be off of your property, he's trespassing. If the officers find him on your property, they'll arrest him. But based on the communicated threats, they didn't hear those threats. They can't arrest him for that. He has to go to the magistrate. The thing he needs to do is the 50C order. If the individual's impaired, hopefully he'll sober up tomorrow and not even realize that he's even done
That's what I
it
thought
today.
the other day when he came up to the house. And it happened. But, well, guys, I appreciate everything you do and your time. Gary, you have a good day.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Ross Dodgett, Macon County Public Health. Welcome, Ross.
Good evening. Mitchell. My name is Ross Dodge, and I've brought some reinforcements here with Mitchell Bishop. We're board members of the Macon County Public Health Department. Obviously, the virus has caused problems throughout the community, including the Public Health Department. I do want to make sure that we understand that whatever we discuss tonight, the Public Health Department is here to provide their services and continue to provide their services. That's our game plan, and we're going to stick to it. We do have a problem. We've run over on staff hours of overtime. They have not been paid for their overtime. The hourly employees have been paid for overtime. The figure is approximately 40,000. I have a report that says 36, but that was a month ago, and so these overtime hours are accumulating as we speak. Staff morale is high, but you know, this is suffering to them when they have to put in all these overtime hours and not be compensated. And of course, the epidemic is continuing as we speak. Seems a little bit on the rise just lately. And I'm going to have Mitch discuss the part of how we might arrive at some sort of an agreement on this.
Well, what we're here is asking, for y'all's help. We understand that there's reasons, we're just talking about the salaried employees, and we understand there's different rules and regulations for your hourly versus your salary employees. And first of all, I want y'all to understand we're not asking for an open-ended thing here to where the salaried folks are, continue on, getting paid for their overtime. But I think we all agree in the times that we're in, a lot of these folks have spent a lot of time away from their families, and they're on the front line, so they could be taking this home. We just want to know for y'all is see if there's an opportunity with any funding available for y'all to consider, due to the amount of hours these salaried folks are working overtime, is to either get some compensation, or I know comp time is a possible option as well in some government agencies, but we were just requesting on their behalf, due to the hours they're putting in and the unusual circumstances that we have, if there's an opportunity to compensate these folks, again, just for the pandemic, not everything moving forward, but anything related to that. And that's, by the Board of Health, that's what we're here to represent, the Board of Health, and ask the county commissioners to consider that.
Obviously,
They can change the policy with him, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Manager.
Yes, right now, for salaried employees, it's just like, across all other county departments. Salaried employees are exempt from the overtime compensation requirements in the Fair Labor Standards Act. And we have a policy in place which highlights that locally. So something of that nature would take an amendment to our current policy, yes. And and the health department employees are no different than the the salaried employees, the salaried exempt employees in any other department, as they would not be compensated either in that case for overtime hours. In other words, if you, as a salaried employee, if you work 40 hours or if you work 60 hours, you get paid the salary that is applicable to your position.
What about comp time for salary? Is
Comp
that
time, no, it's the same thing.
same thing as
It's
compensation?
Yes.
It's, I don't know, I needed them after hours yesterday, the department, for an issue, and happy that they were there and happy that they were willing and obviously very professional. So I appreciate y'all bringing it to our attention. Mr. Manager, I guess nod of heads, I think it is something we probably should discuss.
And I did meet with the sheriff about, the sheriff's department in the same situation. There's a lot of other departments. You're talking about a huge, when you start adding everybody up, it's a huge amount of money.
It is, and that's the reason I mentioned the part, if comp time is an option or something to help these folks out, any consideration y'all would give, the board would greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure the employees would as well.
Great, no, I agree.
There's a part of this I don't quite understand, is that there are state monies that the health department has received but not spent. And those monies were entitled for virus.
CARES Act money, is that what?
Pardon?
The CARES Act money, is that what you?
Kathy?
Yeah, it's part of the CARES.
Yes. So there are monies available, but there's not a legal pathway to do this?
The CARES Act funding has specific requirements related to what it can and cannot be spent on with respect to any type of additional compensation. And every, as you talk about different positions across the organization, you're going to be having to evaluate each position individually to determine if it is applicable for some form of additional compensation through the CARES Act. We do have, I do plan on discussing something a little later in the agenda, a little later during this meeting, that could potentially will serve to address these concerns that have been brought before us, not only by the health department, but of course from the sheriff's department and numerous other departments across the county, both front lines and those service-oriented departments that, we've just seen a tremendous increase in demand for service as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we'll be touching on something a little later on in this agenda that I feel like will potentially bring a solution to this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mitchell. Right, Ed Trask, Nantahala Community Library. Welcome, Ed.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to introduce myself in case there's anybody that doesn't know me. I'm a member of the library board for both the county and the region. I'm also vice president of the Nantahala Community Club. I want to thank you for keeping the people of Nantahala in mind as you consider a new library, community library building. The current library facility in Nantahala is roughly 1,800 square feet. The recommendation from the Mosley Architect Group said that they recommended a 10,000 square foot facility. We think an optimum size would be 2,500 square feet, which would be sufficient for the library as well as the community room. And keeping in mind that every library in the system has community room available. We in the past engaged with community members, focus groups and meetings and surveys in which we learned that the most valuable services that the library provided was classes and events for adults, the Wi-Fi, high-speed internet, naturally checking out the books, new services that they responded in the surveys was bigger, nicer place for things like family reunions, birthday parties, weddings, etc., etc. Community involvement activities such as job fairs, and more bandwidth and reliable high-speed internet. The current location, which is on the Nantahala school property, received the most interest from these surveys as far as keeping the facility there. The second was in the White Oak area, which is where y'all are considering. As far as the utilization of the community club in the library, basically the community club would not exist if it wasn't for the library, carrying the overhead, utilities, phone, et cetera, et cetera. The community club does not have a budget. We raise funds for specific purposes, such as winter coats and shoes for students at the school, as well as student scholarships for graduating seniors. These are done in conjunction with the school, with input from the school. We also have programs called Miles to Go for needy people, travel expenses for medical expenses. We provide veterans flags at the various cemeteries in the community. We usually have a children's Christmas party each year, which we will not be having this year. We usually have a fire department appreciation dinner, which we will not be having this year. We did participate in Halloween with the kids. The school set up various sites around the track next to the school, and the library had a tent set up in one of those tracks and gave out bags of Halloween candy so that there wasn't any touching. So basically, we just wanted to make some public comments and see if you had any comments or questions for us.
Thank you, Mr. Trask. Any questions, comments, Paul?
Yeah, I've talked to Ed a few times on this. You know, we're still trying to do something, Ed. It may not be right. I don't know. Times are hard. And in the capital improvement plan, I think a new library for Nantahala ranked about 7th or 8th on the list, and some big ticket investments. And if we went down the list of that professional capital improvement plan, Nantahala would never get a building.
Right.
There just wouldn't be funds after a justice center, a courthouse, jails, and all, and the other items in between. So we've really been looking, and we're trying to land something over there that may not be perfect, but it is a starting point if we can pull it together. And we'll be talking about it, not in public session tonight, but we're working on it. Yeah.
Okay. I know the architectural study came up with a figure of somewhere north of $4 million.
Yeah.
Which is just totally out of line.
Yeah, if you build a 25 or a 10,000 square foot building, that might not be out of line. But where we're located there at the school, that double wide takes up about everything available space wise. So it's a work in progress. We've all committed to doing what we to come up with something. And once we, if and when we do land on a piece of property and reveal it to the public, then we will certainly want to bring you and the board and Karen in. But we're just trying to do something right now.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ed, for your interest in the library and being active and presenting those tidbits of information to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Public comment? All right, any additions to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, if the board would consider, please, adding the 2021 holiday schedule, and perhaps that could just as easily be done by placing that under the consent agenda. As in years past, we always follow the Office of State Human Resources schedule. So that aligns county closings with any closings here in the courthouse that affect state offices.
All right, everybody good with putting that on consent agenda? All right. Anything else?
We have, Mr. Shields has one other announcements.
Okay.
Just want to invite everybody to tune in your radios tomorrow at 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock for broadcasting on Radio 1050 and 104.9, a veterans program. A group of us is linked up with Special Liberty Project group that works with Gold Star families, veterans in need, things like that. They've only been here a few months. They wanted to do some kind of program. A few of us has linked up with them to help them get this started, and we inserted singers and those type of things. We'll have a wreath. We'll be doing the flags, the wreath. We'll have Mr. Bill and the mayor, so I'll be making a few announcements. I think one thing we're doing this time that's unique, we've called each care center that we have here, and tomorrow we're going to spend a little time during that time doing shout outs, because there's a lot of veterans within our care centers, and the people there, your activity leaders, have assured me that they will make sure that the veterans are hovering around the radio tomorrow when we do our shout outs to them for those veterans. And somebody said, well, what about the rain? Rain, hail, sleet, or snow? We're going tomorrow. We've got tents up there. We've got barns up there. So we're
Plastic pieces of trash bag.
It's that you go up Onion Mountain, Steve. It's about a mile or so up Onion Mountain. Turn left on Berry Road. I think Driver Road. Berry Road. You go down through there. Seems like forever. But then it opens up to a complex, a site there, where they're working with different families. But tomorrow we're going to have our program there and be outside. And it looks rainy, but we'll be there.
10 a.m.?
From 11 to 12 on the radio.
Okay.
But 10 o'clock, we're going to do the 21 gun salute, land of the wreath, taps, all of those type things.
We'll also be recognize all those veterans who are in long care facilities in Macon County, which is a list a lot longer than you'd ever dream. They include Highlands, Macon Valley, all the long-term facilities in our county. We'll be recognizing those veterans by name, first name only, but by name and the branch of service they served in, which is the ones that Mr. Shields and I talked to have been very appreciative.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other additions to the agenda?
So tune in.
Tune in, 11 a.m.
1050 or 104.9.
Rain, snow, sleet.
We got to do it.
Anything else, Lori? All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're moving on to reports and presentations. Update on the request to use the Robert C. Carpenter Community Building to host a gun show. Emergency Services Director Warren Cave, and Public Health Director Kathy McGowan. Welcome. It's like y'all had this planned out for days.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have talked about the proposal that the folks brought, I guess, at the last meeting about the potential gun show. Kathy and I have talked about it, and there's no local restriction that would prohibit any of that from occurring there. For those of you who've never been to one of those, we treat that basically the same way we did the gym show back in the summer. It's more retail than it is show. A show kind of implies that you go look at something and you come back out the door, but that tends to be, just as the gym show was, more of a retail process. So the only restrictions that we would have on there would be what the governor's executive orders have on there as far as their capacity. So as long as they meet the intent of that and try to maintain the numbers that the governor's order has at the time and the distancing, I certainly don't have an issue with it. And then the only other thing that we would encourage them to do is to try and schedule early, because we've been working hard with the rec folks, particularly with youth basketball starting. Volleyball just finished, youth basketball's just starting. They're trying to limit the practices that a lot of those teams have in those facilities, so that you have one team in, then time to clean, and then another team to come in. So the length of time that our gyms, which include the gym at the Carpenter building, as well as the schools and others, that's been kind of stretched out, where before we could squeeze a lot of stuff in, it's been stretched. So we would just encourage them to talk to Seth and try and get scheduled early.
Like Warren said, we had a chance to talk about this and agree that it's very similar to the gym show. There's obviously some protocols that they'd like to see put in place to maintain some social distancing between the vendors and the people that are coming there to look at the retail items. And, the idea of having an entry and an exit so that people are not coming into each other and spending time together. There's a flow of people. They'll look at the ventilation of the building. If we can keep, depending on how warm it is that day, if we can keep windows open, that kind of thing. Encourage mask use. That's important by the vendors as well as the people that are coming in. All those things would help, with any event that we have to keep the virus spread down. And of course, like I've continued to say with any group that I talk to, if they're planning this a couple of months from now, there is a chance that we could be seeing a spike at that time, and we may have to rethink this. But the way things are currently, I think there's no problem with us going forward with this.
I think that's understandable.
Yeah.
Thank you both for your time on this.
And they practice the other shows they've been having in North Carolina. They've got the plexiglass.
Yes.
I mean,
They've made a lot of advances with what they can do to keep people safe.
Well, and I was going to make that comment. I think they mentioned the Land of Sky show that was over in Asheville about a month ago at the Ag Center. I actually went to that one, and they had a really good setup. They controlled their folks in and out. They had everybody spread out. So if they model after that one, that's ideal.
They've actually got guidance documents. I'd be happy to share those with anybody that's planning an event to do those things.
Gentlemen, you'll pass that along to your dad?
I will do.
Great, thank you.
and he needs to work through Seth. Is that right?
Seth, yeah, just needs to schedule a date.
I think it'd be good.
All right, sounds good.
Thank y'all.
Kathy, before we move on, can you give us a flu shot update?
A flu shot update. Sure.
I mean, we see the billboards on the highway. And
Yeah, we've been trying to, when we're not testing, we're administering flu shots. We have the drive-through set up in the back of the health department, and people are coming through, able to get their flu shots. We've
out
had
of the 10,000, do you know how much you use?
it's been surprising how many. We've had quite a few people request the free flu shot, so I think it's made a difference with that population.
Good.
Yeah, we have, I think, one more community clinic scheduled next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow. And then we're going to look at how many vaccines we have left at that point to see if we can offer any more clinics.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
update on the Quasi initiative. Executive Director Elaine Isabel, welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to try to get a PowerPoint in here. No. Hi. Do we have a tech expert by chance, or am I going to have to figure this out?
While we're waiting on that, I just got a text from a friend that monitors the rain in Highlands after today. Highlands is now at 130.04 inches for the year.
It's a new record, right, Mr.
It is, yeah. About 10 inches.
10 inches?
Yeah. Still some time to go.
Tell them to hold off.
Still 12.
Yeah, 12.
It's good for the landscape business.
Good to have those track hose.
That's right. Anybody have a landscape company there, but they're doing good without rain.
They do good either way.
Yeah.
They're working on it in there.
Rained all day. I worked in the rain all day. Getting cold.
I'm going to see where it looks are. D.
Closed.
That's what happened to my hair. It melted. Thank you. Let me put this hammer over here.
Just wanted to say I appreciate that.
Just about there.
There you go.
Cool.
Cool.
So,
Got it. Good
Chairman,
job.
Commissioners, yeah, I passed the test. So I am Elaine Isabel, and hello to everybody out here. Most of you probably haven't met me. I'm the Executive Director for the Quasi Initiative, and have only been at it a few months. I came from Oregon and was hired to start April 1st, and of course that was the sort of initiation of all of our COVID experience, and I was asked to stay put, and so I worked from there for a while and eventually said, I gotta get to Macon County. And so I hopped in a U-Haul truck and packed a lot of food so I wouldn't have to get out of the truck, and here I am. I'm here just to give you guys an update on what's been happening, really pretty much since I've been here. And I do want to make note up here, as it says, that we're trying to use the word Noquishii as well as Niquasi around the mound, so you may hear me say that. Just know they're interchangeable words. Yeah. Ooh. So thank you is the first thing that I want to share with you. The county has been so supportive and has allowed us to really become what we are and to be able to look to the future. And we're going to talk about that future. So I'm sure everyone here, most everyone has seen the new kiosk probably, but a lot of people didn't get to see the construction around it. And so these are just a few highlight photos because it was kind of fun. You know, it was such a process to get to this point, and once we could kick it into gear, I think it was really exciting. So the first two photos you see in the upper left there are the laying of the footings or the foundation. Then you can see in the upper right to the infrastructure coming in. The lower, very lower left is indicative of having two different crews, one doing the footings and one doing the infrastructure, and the holes didn't line up. So had to get the welding torch out, but we were able to get all that fixed up, the placing of the signs, and then the last two are the landscaping. And I'm probably the only person looking forward to the rain that's coming because the landscaping out there needs it. But it looks really beautiful. As you can see, whoops, come on. Let's try it this way. Here. So, you know, the view of the kiosk has for so long been crowded, let's put it that way to be nice. And now there are places you can stand and you can see the kiosk and you can see the honor of the mound. And I think it's a wonderful thing. So, what happens next? And there's a lot of ideas flying around. I'm sure y'all were aware of the feasibility study that was done about a year ago. I think we've outgrown that concept at this point and have some bigger and more wonderful ideas that could be really important to the county, particularly in a economic development arena. The center image there is an artist's rendering of what the area could look like. The lower right is from the town comprehensive plan, and I can't really interpret it, but it looks nice and green and pretty for sure. The upper right and the lower left are similar sites in Texas, actually. And what they are places where people have come together around a concept of agriculture, education, and culture, and made these, at least in this case, this campus, I guess I'd call it, with an opportunity for learning. And so what we're talking about now is growing some traditional Cherokee foods, some indigenous foods here, really making that the landscape, and then bringing it into what we'd call the center, which was originally intended to be the museum, and have that an area where people can learn about good health, bring people in from really around the country and the world to have health and healing training based in a very traditional spirituality, I guess. And then the upper left is the statue that I think you guys are going to hear more about tonight. But to us, art is a really important part of this, and the two Texas images incorporated art to a huge extent. And I think Macon County is going to have this incredible gateway going both ways. We want to, I don't know where each of you guys are from, but we want to reach out to Highlands and to expand the corridor going forward. So don't even try to dig into this, but this is just a schematic of what has to happen for all that wonderful stuff I just explained. And the plan is in place, and we're going to try to flow with all those arrows, and within a few years' time have something happening. This is really important. The Quasi initiative's in the middle of a strategic planning process, and so we sent out a survey, and I'm usually a super optimist, and in my super optimistic way I was thinking maybe we'd get 50 responses and that would be fantastic. Well, it blew my mind. We got 142 responses, a lot of them from EBCI members as well as regional people. And there's some interesting things that we learned. I still haven't quantified all of the data, and so if anybody's curious about it, I'll have that fairly soon. But 31% of the people who responded didn't know what the Quasi initiative was. That's a big heads up for me and for our board, and tells us that we have a lot of educating to do. 95% believe history, heritage, and culture are very important to this community. And so we know we're on the right path. 99% want to learn more, so education becomes a huge piece of what we're doing going forward. And as I said, 79% are EBCI members. Most people were middle-aged that responded. Common sites that people felt were important: Nokwishii, the Nokwasi Mound, Gadua, the Museum of the Cherokee, and the Trail of Tears. And I don't know how up you guys all are on the initiative to get national recognition of the Trail of Tears right here in Macon County, but we're going to work hard on that to make it happen because it would be a big boon to the county. Common topics for additional learning that people wanted to have presented: history, the Cherokee, the mounds, culture, and people in general. We had a lot of conversation about, and I keep preaching this, culture is, everybody has a culture. And we have a tendency to lean toward the Eastern Bend and Cherokee culture in our initiatives, but there's a lot of other foci out there that we could focus on. And then what people want to see us achieve in the future is that development of the mound that I showed you in the earlier slide, land protections, education, and our map for tourism to get people out there. And so on the right-hand side this is a draft. You can see it doesn't even have a title yet, but it's sort of an unusual layout for a tourism map, and we'll get input from a lot more people before it's finished, but basically it's got stars for key areas, and then information on the right and the back will have detailed information for people. So what other ongoing activities do we have? The corridor. And is everybody familiar with the cultural corridor? It runs from the Georgia line through to really the national park. And basically there's a lot of sites that people have brought to our attention that we want to put up more kiosks and have people be able to have a self-guided tour through this area. Cherokee Kiosk is next, now that we've got the Quasi kiosk finished, and it's in the planning stages. The infrastructure actually is constructed, we just got to get the signs together. The Apple Trail. This is really important. I have a whole slide on this, and I really need you guys focus on that. So, but just real quickly, there's a project. Let me backstep a moment. The Cherokee people were incredible breeders of apples. Most people don't know that. As soon as the Spanish landed here, they brought apricots and apples. And the Cherokee people just dug in, literally, and created new varieties of apples. When they were sent away on the Trail of Tears, a lot of those apple varieties were lost or taken to other parts of the country. And so the Quasi initiative is hoping or planning to put along the greenway mini orchards that highlight each, I think 5 of those different apple varieties. I'll come back to it. Multicultural Alliance is a group of leaders of cultural groups who recognize that coming out of COVID, we are going to have to depend on our own personal cultures and learn to respect each other's. The map you saw, Clemson University is really gung-ho to work with us, get our experience and carry it down there and do some of the same things. And then Hall Mountain, of course, is the Cherokee Community Forest, and we've been helping with the education program there. And I don't know if people know, that's the only tribally owned community forest designated by the USDA Forest Service in the country. So the Apple Trail. The Apple Trail is about bringing people together and about sharing heritage. And what better way, we say we break bread together when we want to get together with people and sit down and get to know each other better. Or we have wine or beer. What better way than with food? And the apple is not only physically a food, but it has this historic information, and it's a treasure that people aren't aware of. And so it becomes like a model or a symbol of how our communities have come together long ago, how we've broken apart, and how we've come back together to care about each other. And so it encourages health, because an apple a day keeps the doctor away is really true, and celebrates the past, and we hope that it'll attract a lot of visitors to the area. The reason this is one of the important things I want to share with you is because I hope to walk away with your blessing that you're happy to have it on the Greenway. Frogs is on board. They are extremely excited. Every time we have a meeting, they call up and say, we want to be there. We want to have volunteers to help plant trees. We're talking about 5 sites with maybe 4 or 5 trees per site, so not a lot, probably putting some fencing around them to protect them. But I just want to make sure you're all aware of that. And then celebrations of success. The Laurel Magazine top center is this month's Asheville Art Magazine. It's got an article about what's happening here with the Quasi initiative, bringing some attention to Macon County. There's a photo of the Cowie Mound in it, I believe, and then one from up at the Museum of the Cherokee Indian. The two diagonal photos are from our groundbreaking, which happened kind of impromptu. It was a great ceremony, and had that great picture, which you probably all saw, of Mayor Scott and Chief Sneed with their elbows together. It was like all telling. The Quasi Initiative's gotten social media going. Please visit us there. I'm kind of not adept at that, but we've got somebody who is. And so there's information coming out there. And then does anybody have any questions? Thank you. And I'll try to get this out with a little less trouble than it went in.
Did I miss the part about the money?
I didn't come to ask you for any money.
No, I didn't say you came to ask, but I know that.
I'll take some.
It takes money. What is the budget total?
So our budget, I believe, we haven't finalized it for next year. I think it's $180,000. We'd love to have the county on as a partner. We are putting an acknowledgement sign up at the kiosk. It hasn't been finished yet. It will acknowledge the county as a prior funder for the Quasi initiative. And if we can continue forward with you guys on board, I think we're going to be bringing a lot of benefit to the county, especially as that campus is built and we start bringing in some high-level educators and speakers and such.
I've spoken with Chairman Burns. I guess you might know him over there in Swainfield. He is the chairman of the Cherokee Preservation Foundation, of which I've been on a member for a good long while. And I really think, and so does Danny really think, that this might qualify. There are certain rules and regulations, of course, for the foundation. So I've asked for a meeting with Bobby Raines, with he and myself and President Burns of the foundation. So we're hopeful that because it does tie into the Cherokee, hitting and the Quasi and everything ties right together. So
it's amazing the kind of confluence of everything right here in this spot, and you guys are fortunate to be at the center of it. So.
But I will need something more of a budget, a detailed of what you
I
need.
can get you that.
And
so you're talking about the big picture looking forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And how it's going to be spent, when will it be spent?
Yep.
When you need it.
Yeah, we have a kind of a huge all-day brainstorming Thursday. So after that, I can give you a little more information.
There's a lady back there can get a hold of me at any time, so Ann can give you all my information. And so if you'll get that to me, I think we meet on December 11th.
Okay.
So.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I'm just going to yank this out. It won't hurt your computer. It might hurt my thumb drive. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Gray. Welcome. Formation of the County Natural Resources Committee. Jim.
Thank you for the opportunity and congratulations to the commissioners that were recently elected in existing office and new office.
And Josh would have been here tonight, but he has a friend suffering from cancer out of town that he was visiting with. He would have been here tonight.
Yeah. I won't read this whole thing, but as a little background, when the Nantahala and the Pisgah National Forest management plan was being developed, we put together a committee to advise the county on what we thought the county's recommendation should be to that plan. I served on the stakeholders forum, and even before that, from about 2012 all the way through to the conclusion of the planning process. So with Macon County having 46% of their land in the national forest, that advisory committee process got me to thinking, and Jack Morgan and some others, that it would be a good thing to carry forward, to have an advisory committee, a volunteer committee that would look at the natural Macon County and be able to provide advice to the commission. And I see three objectives. One, we've got a lot of disparate groups that come and talk before the commission when something on a natural resources basis comes up. So the first objective would be to have those people represented on this committee and to understand everybody's values and needs rather than arguing them out in a public forum. They're going to make their presentation anyway, but if we understand each other, we might can come to some compromises and agreements. That's the second objective, to try to reach agreements and compromises in advance. And the third one is to provide expertise and perspectives on the natural environment of Macon County that may not exist in the commission or on the staff, because we do have some people in the county with a lot of knowledge, whether it be from hunting or hiking or kayaking or biking or photography or whatever. We've got the Mainspring Conservation Trust that does fantastic work in preserving natural land and heritage lands. And I just thought if we could coordinate these and come to the commission with a coherent set of recommendations when these things come up, it could be positive for the county. Transylvania County's had a advisory committee like this for many years, and I know some of those people well, and it served their county well. So I wanted to put the proposal forward. I won't be here to see it reach fruition, but if you accept it and do it, you need to find a good leader to make it work, and stay with them and see if we can make that a positive benefit to the county. So I thank y'all for listening and considering.
Thank you, Jim. I'm sure we're going to have some questions or comments before you step down here. Mr. Manager, will you go ahead and, with everybody's consent, go ahead and place that on our next agenda? Absolutely. Under all business for further discussion. Jim, this is just one of the many fine examples of leadership and just how good of a citizen that you've been to Macon County, and we're going to miss you. I'm going to miss you as a friend. I'm going to miss you as a consultant. We're going to miss you again as a leader for this county. So we wish you nothing but the best as you move to Florida, and you're always welcome back here, and I hope you call it your own.
Well, thank you. It's been a great chapter in our lives, and now it's time to open a new one.
I understand. Any other comments?
The hours you put into this forest management plan, that's nobody else put the hours in that you did, and thank you for that. I know who you were fighting for, and I truly appreciate your input on that and the effectiveness of that input. But thank you, Jim, and be safe.
Thank you.
Jim, I think you exemplify what makes Macon County what it is. I appreciate you, citizens of Macon County appreciate you. You've always had your heart in the right place, and everything you've done, you've done it right. You've always done it right, and can't say enough about you. Appreciate you.
And Jim, I agree with the lame duck commissioner that's in.
Yeah.
You've always been fair, Jim, and over the years, before a lot of these boys were even on this board, me and you were at meetings that wasn't so pleasant.
Oh yeah.
But you've always been fair, and you've always had that demeanor to put everyone at the table if they wanted to come. It was their choice.
Yeah.
And that's always been appreciative, and we're going to miss you, Jim. Like the chairman said, your leadership and your fairness to all. And that's appreciated very much.
Thank y'all.
Jim, we spoke earlier. I'll say the same thing as the other board members have. We appreciate what you've done for Macon County.
Thank you. Thank you.
Macon County.
Wait a minute, it's a Kodak moment, Jim.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
There you go.
I didn't expect that.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, that'll hang on my wall proudly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
Take care.
Yep. Y'all got my phone number if I can help.
Well, bye.
All right. Thank you.
When's he moving?
Like you said, his house closes December 17th.
Well, that's a loss there.
Yeah.
About the same time as Fred's. That's about neck and neck.
All right, item 9D, Women's History Trail Sculpture Project Update. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. It's great to be here
Hey, Mary.
tonight. I've got some slides to show you and got a little update for us on the Women's History Trail, and also a really special part of the Women's History Trail is our art project, Sowing the Seeds of the Future. So I've got some slides I'm going to show you, and I'm going to try to go through this pretty quickly so that you can see the images, but not hold up too much with this. Let's see if we can get the slideshow going. All right. Great. I see a couple of you in that picture. That was back in October 2018, and that was the opening day, the red ribbon cutting ceremony for the Women's History Trail, and a lot's gone on since then. We're going to talk tonight about updates to the trail, but mostly about the sculpture project. Because of local generosity and support, we've been able to commission a nationally renowned figurative sculptor, Wesley Walford, to produce a 7-foot-high statue, bronze, of 3 women whose lives and culture intersected in the early days of our county. This is exciting artwork. The leaders of the Women's History Trail, and this is kind of important to understand because of the overlap of a lot of our efforts and a lot of our community organizations. The Women's History Trail is a project under the Folk Heritage Association of Macon County. And the leaders of the Women's History Trail are, I'm one of the leaders, and Barbara McCrae and Marty Griebel. Now, Ann Hyder, who is chairwoman of the Folk Heritage Association, and Teresa Ramsey are also very involved in this project, and they serve to help us in a consultative way with the leadership. And you'll see the sign there. That's kind of interesting. Shows a little bit of community collaboration, which we really promote. The Macon County Historical Museum has given us 3 rooms on their top story, and those are the office locations for our project, the Women's History Trail. And so we're really grateful for that and enjoy that collaboration. But we are not part of the Historical Museum, but we are part of the Folk Heritage Association. But we're not part of the Quasi initiative, but they are our very strong collaborators in terms of this art project, and also the Heritage Plaza and the green area that Elaine spoke to you about, that's hopefully evolving for the city and for the county. Just to remind you, the Women's History Trail opened, like I said, in October 2018, and we had local, state, and national attention for this. It was really a great day. We're really proud. The Women's History Trail of Macon County is the first one of its kind in North Carolina. Now, there's lots of others around the country, and some states really jumped in on this early, but we are the first in North Carolina. You see a very nice bronze foundry plaque in this photo, and this plaque is dedicated and explains the life of Laura Jones, whom you all probably are familiar with. And you can see where that plaque stands down on West Main Street in front of the Jones house. So since that time, we started out with 9 plaques, and we now have 15 plaques around the area surrounding our city, and we're moving on out to the county. So our next plans for expansion go to Highlands. So this is exciting. And we are also looking to come forward with 3 new plaques in the next month. And I got a note from Marty Griebel that said the Foundry said that the plaque for Nan Ray, a really wonderful African-American woman who had so much influence in this community, Nan Ray's plaque is ready when we are to add her to the trail. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Sowing the Seeds of the Future. The picture you see is of Wesley Wofford. His studio is in Cashiers, North Carolina. We're really fortunate to have this caliber of artist in our community, but to have him be the person who is doing the artwork for this project is somewhat at times for me overwhelming. He is very committed to our project. We started out with just money that we earned from small local projects, and you're probably aware of that. We had some great donations and a small endowment gift or two to help us fund the design maquette. And this is another important concept. So what you see in these pictures of the 3 women actually is the first step in making that huge sculpture. And so we really were taken by his vision based on Barbara McCrae's historical research, and the stories behind the women connect them all in a way that's very amazing. That was not known early on. These lives of women from the Cherokee, African-American slave, and from the settler, resilient settler woman in what we see in Thomasina Siler Sloan, all came together with the same issues, the same problems, the same difficulties, but the same resilience and goodness that we see solving problems today. So this sculpture was a vision of Barbara, but also Wesley stepped in. So the maquette, we bought the maquette there, and then we started a campaign to get to the next phase of the project, and that was to get the sculptor on board, get everything set so that he could proceed with the next phase and create a 1/3 scale model. Now this is important. The funding for that came from generous people in our community who saw this project, who heard the stories and stepped forward. So we're talking about private donations locally from several couples, $25,000, another $25,000, a $10,000 gift, anonymous gift that we can't reveal, $5,000, and another one for $5,000 from that anonymous donor. So the impetus for us to feel that, again, the community was behind this was obvious because we were not going to seek public funds, being very conservative and looking at how we do use public funds, even though for public art, there's an investment there for all of us. So that the citizens came forward first, I think that's very significant. So in August 2019, we had enough money to put our project on the artist schedule, and to also have him project based on his work and what he was having to accomplish, that he would start January, February 2020 with us in this next phase of the project. So we entered a formal contract with the studio, and by February 2020, we had completed that funding goal to make that 1/3 scale possible. So we're going from that small maquette, whose detail still, it really is impressive, but the artist keeps telling us, no, as we get bigger, there's going to be more detail and more impressive things to emerge from the work. So that's where we are right now. So I'm just going to go through these slides very quickly. The models were discovered and recruited them, and this is another thing we really like, is they're all local women. A local expert seamstress, Catherine Sellers, she's also a member of our WHT team. She came on board as the costuming designer. And then the Browns, a family you all might know from Cherokee, the Browns, who are very experienced with historical Cherokee life and acknowledged experts there, they joined the team too. And what follows are some photos of some things that have happened from spring forward till now. Catherine is here working with a model that's going to be the model for Timoxena Siler Sloan. She's also talking with Timoxena Siler Sloan, a local namesake of this woman in the sculpture you all probably know of, but she's on board with us too. These are some historical pictures of Timoxena Siler Sloan. The one on her left is with her husband William. The head study that now has emerged as part of this next phase is seen here too. These are the two ladies that are the models. For the one on the right, Angela Cunningham, is for Timoxena. Delphine Kirkland, also local, is on the right. She's the model for Sally. And you can see some shots now of Odyssey taking measurements of her when we were working up at the museum on our third floor area when they first started out. And you can see the individual photograph of Sally in the sculpture. This was a very important meeting next in the spring of 2020. This was over at the Cherokee Museum. Dakota Brown works there. She's one of the daughters of Sandra Brown. You might also know Diamond Brown, who he died recently. That was Sandra's husband and the girl's father. But Dakota works there at the museum, and her mother Sandra, as well as the sister Walela, were there helping us understand some of the important symbolism and the construction of costumes. And what came from that, you can see Wesley's there, the artist is there. What came from that meeting was this beautiful traditional dress that the Browns actually created, and Walela is going to wear as she models for the Rebecca, the Cherokee woman in the sculpture. And you can see them here. Fast forward to April and May of this year, and COVID pandemic times, the work could have stopped and things could have been greatly slowed down, because this was when they were going to have to start working intimately with the models. But Wesley persisted, and his cashiers, outside his cashier studio, Wesley and Angela here and Catherine, you can see, started working outside with masks. Another progression to the head studies. This is a photograph of the final costume that Catherine made that Timoxena Siler Sloan will be wearing for the modeling. And here's a beautiful photograph of Walela Brown. That's her daughter, kind of perched as the baby will be in the sculpture, and then Walela posing in the position that she'll be in for the sculpture. These next two photographs, again, show the persistence of this artist and the respect he has for working in these times. These are the actual models now starting to be positioned, and him taking many, many photographs, making small adjustments. And again, this is outside his cashier studio. All right, this is important, and I guess you can say that Elaine may not have been here today to ask, but I'm going to step up and ask for some support for the county. And let me just explain to you this timeline you're looking at. In January 2018, we had the funds. We paid $3,000 for the design maquette. In July 2018, we did some revisions on that maquette and paid the artist $1,000. August 2019, we were very proud to pay the fee to secure the sculpture, this nationally renowned sculptor. And in February 2020, we were so proud that we were able to put down the payment to undertake the completion of the 1/3 size sculpture, which is in progress now. The pandemic hit, and then we had to see his work stop, and our fundraising was hugely impacted. We had some definite plans to move forward to ask the state government for some help, and that was put on the burner, understandably. And then we also had planned a gala to raise $25,000, and we just could not have that happen because of COVID restrictions. So what happened is we've submitted a grant to Farabee Foundation, which is local, and also to the Blue Ridge National Heritage Association Heritage Grant. So I got those turned in with the help of Teresa Ramsey, one in July and then one in October, and both of those awards are pending. So we've gotten very positive, we've got some good feedback from them on the grants that we sent in. But the end of November here, we are looking to pay $70,000 to begin the full-size model. And we do need some financial support. Now, I will acknowledge to you, if you read on down the end of that slide, that you're saying, well, Mary, these are tough times. How confident are you, if you invest this money, that you are all going to be able to be fundraisers, the Women's History Trail and the Folk Heritage Association of Macon County? How confident are you that you're going to be able to see this come to fruition? And I'm here tonight to tell you I am very confident, because if we have this community support in the amount of monies that we've received so far, and we have demonstrated this to the grantors, they are going to say, yes, this is important. And if we have grant history moving into the next year, our plans are to include larger funders, including the Mellon Foundation, and also we're going to approach Cherokee Preservation and see if we can start pulling some of that community in and looking at some of the other larger funding entities that I feel confident will see and be interested in this project in a way to help us get funded. And so I'll leave you with that, but also, again, those amounts we asked for, I asked for the full amount that the Farabee Endowment, which is again local, could give us, was $10,000. And the Blue Ridge National Heritage Area, for the Heritage Grant, we asked for $16,000. This next picture, just to remind you, is where that sculpture could be located. And I think the visual, just the star shows you all that the visual in terms of a gateway with a piece of art of this caliber is going to be a really neat thing for our community and for our county, and for the trails to be connected, our projects to be connected in ways that promote heritage tourism. I think that's a really good, important economic key to these projects. It's an investment. So when I wrote the grant for Blue Ridge National Heritage Partnership, I got a letter of support from Tommy Jenkins. And I just have to remind you, in case you didn't read that, it was in your packet for tonight, I'm going to remind you that he said, the Women's History Trail's efforts to install the monumental Sowing the Seeds of the Future in the River District of Franklin will support and enhance the efforts of many local organizations working toward the revitalization of the area around the Quasi Mound. The potential for combined efforts in drawing heritage tourists is huge. The Blue Ridge National Heritage Area Partners 2014 study regarding heritage tourism revealed that the tourism contributes $2.3 billion annually to the economy of Western North Carolina, supporting more than 30,000 jobs and generating $176.5 million in state and local tax revenue. The study noted that heritage tourism also supports the conservation and sustainability of the region's parks, forests, waterways, historic sites, and cultural traditions. And so that also summarized basically what I said. I'm going to submit to you each one of you got copies, and also just a really good summary of the project. And here's a formal request from the leadership team of the Women's History Trail and also the Folk Heritage Association board members. And we would like to ask that the county consider contributing an amount of $15,000 toward the project. And that amount would be the same that the town of Franklin committed to our project in the beginning of this phase. And right now, that would greatly help us make this next payment and move on with our project. So I'm going to give each member, I'll pass that around, and there's also a summary of the project. And again, the last slide shows the 3 women model as they begin their work with Wesley to make this come alive. And we are deeply we're deeply appreciative of what you all have done already in terms of being present for us to support the History Trail, for being ambassadors for us to talk about this and have more understanding about it as commissioners, and to spread the word over in Highlands and maybe gather some support for us in terms of folks' interest over there just for our History Trail, but also for this amazing monumental sculpture project. And thank you so much tonight for listening to this and for the presentation. Thank you.
And Mary, let me just say that the plan of the board is we're going to have a full budget review in January. I know that don't help you now, but not that we've not formally agreed, but we've pretty much agreed with the board that until then, request outside of the needs of the county, the manager's putting together a list that we'll be meeting sometime in January. I know that don't help you now, but we'll certainly see that that's on the list.
Well, the help is what we're looking for. So thank you again so much, and if y'all just keep these things in mind and keep that formal request forward, are very much appreciated.
It will be.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, no old business. Moving on to new business. Item 11A, discussion approval of a 3-1 form regarding the burn building at Southwestern Community College. Dr. Thomas and Curtis Dowdle, welcome, gentlemen. Who's up?
We'll tag team it. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to come before you again this evening. We've met a couple different times in the past in the history of discussion of a new burn building, fire science training facility for Southwestern Community College, more importantly, public safety and training. Curtis and his program. Quick rendition. Several years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, we have both the county and the college had the building reviewed, and it was basically told to us at that point we needed to do a 2-year phase-out plan. And we're now 5 years into this project, and we're trying to figure out just exactly where the burn building may go or would work. And Mr. Shields, Commissioner Shields, and Mr. Rowland met with myself and Curtis and William Brothers a couple times over the last 6 to 8 weeks. And at this point in time, we have landed on a piece of property owned by the college that is adjacent to public safety and training, that is across from the UPS facility. In order to move this project along at this point in time, we have to update what we consider the 3-1, which is the state appropriations that you have in your packet. What we have presented to you and presented to Mr. Rowland was the original amount allocated from the 1.4 million bond money, and what the county had originally allocated or set aside of like 1.312 in the 3-1. And so the only thing changes from our perspective at this point in time would be the location of where the burn building center would actually be. Therefore, that creates the opportunity for us to kick in a new 3-1 on that. We have major needs, as we've expressed in the past, with the expansion and growth of Curtis's program, and we're not unlike anyone else that has been hit with the pandemic. We need additional space because of the spread out of, or the need to spread out of our students. We don't have that additional space at this particular point in time, Mr. Chairman, and I know that Curtis has engaged in conversation with some other entities that would require us leasing space should we need to, if the pandemic continues to carry on as it has thus far. So that's just additional information. We just request consideration of the 3-1 of the new location and with the funding remaining the same, so we're able to carry out the project as originally talked about, I guess, almost 3 years ago, because the state agreed to it in March of 18.
Okay. Just help me refresh my memory on this, Dr. Thomas. The county we'd agreed to give 1.31, roughly 1.3 plus in this, and then I think you had some coming from bond funds of this. It was 1.4 million. As you know, the county has now come in possession of the Armory, which adjoins your facilities. Would it be possible if we struck a deal if the county provides you a long-term lease, a very long-term lease to that building, and makes the upgrades to that building to make it happen, that y'all can make the burn building happen? I mean, could we give you enough classroom space where it might knock the money that we're initially talking down to that 2.7?
I think what you're at
number. So if you see what I'm saying, if we take care of that, we give you the upgrades, we give you the facilities there you need to house your foul trucks, get the building up where y'all have classroom space. Would y'all be able to handle the burn building on your own money, or would you still need funds from us?
I think
I know building costs have increased, but
well, the burn building itself, actually, surprisingly, when we got an updated bid in February, I believe it was, had come down about $150,000. The building itself is about 1.275.
1.247.
Yeah. I had that. Yeah, 1.22. Current quote is 1.22577, about 1.226.
That's just the building. That's not the grading.
That's correct. That's just the building itself. So we would still need funds to carry out the grading and excavation and get the infrastructure taken to the building.
Sure.
And so that cost is a cost unknown to me at this particular point in time, depending on what that may be. So I think the answer to your question is there's a good possibility that it would not take the full $0.23 million, but it would take less than any money above and beyond that. The first money spent would be the bond money. So any money above and beyond that would be county money. Sure. And if we cover the project, then that could be still wrapped into renovation, repair, and fix up toward the Armory.
Right. Mr. Manager, can you?
Yeah, I think, as Dr. Thomas said, we have been discussing this project for quite some time now, and I know that the college as well as the Board of Commissioners are eager to see this project move forward. I think we do have to keep in mind, and in my reviewing these, the amended 3-1 versus what was originally proposed to us in 2018. As Dr. Thomas alluded to, the cost of the burn building itself has went down, and I notice a decrease. That is reflected, $163,950 decrease in the construction cost in the amended 3-1 as opposed to the original 3-1. Also in these costs, the estimated cost of the project from the original 3-1 to the amended 3-1, although that project cost, the construction cost goes down by $164,000, there's been an increase in the design fee of $127,000 and an increase in the construction contingency amount of $37,000, and that just kind of struck me because it is a reduced project cost, and so as to why the design fees and contingency fees have both increased. But I think that highlights what we're talking about when we look back at that original 3-1 that was submitted. It contemplated this project being constructed on Siler Road, and as you'll recall, in estimates that we had received, project cost estimates related to the Siler Road project, there was grading cost in there of $400,000 for the excavation of that site. Now, the site that is referenced in this original 3-1 is very much different than the Siler Road site in that it is pretty much flat as a fritter. So, I think that more than anything, as we are at this juncture, we are looking at, although it is a new site, I think that new site and the site constraints, which are different. Like we had an estimate here of $50,000 to bring the utilities to the site. Is that different now at this new location? I don't know. But I could say that as far as the design fees go, is it the same? Is it the same here as it was previously? And I think it just highlights the need that the project here, as it is proposed in this 3-1 at the Jerry Sutton facility, the site itself, it essentially, in my opinion, creates a new project, and it creates not necessarily a hurdle, but an opportunity for us to continue working alongside Southwestern and nail down the project costs that are going to be specific to this site. And I think in doing that, we comprise a budget that's realistic, and we comprise a budget that's realistic of what it's going to take to construct what's needed at this site as opposed to the Siler Road site. So as far as the bond goes, the NC Connect bond, Macon County is obligated to fund $1 for every $3 received in bond money. So that puts Macon County's, we're obligated at this new site, since there's no longer a property donation to consider or anything of that nature on behalf of the county. We have to go, I think, and look at that $467,000 as the starting point. And as Dr. Thomas said, that they will spend the bond money first. The main obstacle here is the construction of the burn building, which, as Dr. Thomas alluded to, is now $1.2 million, which is about $200,000 decrease from what we were looking at in 2018. So I think at the end of the day, that at this time, we need to circle the wagons here and look at what is now a different project in the way that the site constraints are completely different. Construction costs are completely different than they were in 2018. I mean, whereas this was the metal 2-bay in the classroom was quoted at $150 a square foot for a 2,500 square foot facility. Is that $150 a square foot number still good in 2020? I don't know. So I think that, more than anything, this gives us the opportunity to work together with Southwestern as we start talking about this new location and develop a project scope and are comfortable with the cost of that project and how that cost relates to the county's allocation.
Derek, just for clarification, please. You said there was a $169,000 reduction
in the project cost.
What makes
the building? I think, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, I think that it could be the building, but now the total project, the total estimated cost of the project, because there was that 163 reduction in the construction, but there was an increase in design fee of $126,000, an increase in the contingency of this project of $37,000. So that just kind of, on a project that costs less, that just brought my attention to the design fees and contingency fees related to that project. What is the reasons for those increases? And that is conversations that I think, like I say, brings us back to the point where it's an excellent opportunity. It's in moving this project forward for us to sit down with Southwestern, take a look at what needs to be done, and see if we can get some realistic cost estimates in terms of what the county's contribution will be to this facility.
So I'm just going to reiterate back to what I started this conversation out with. I know we can get drugged down in the mud with the numbers, etc. My thought process, looking at it from up here, 10,000, not dragging into the details of how much each brick's going to cost, is I'm personally kind of tired, almost embarrassed. We've been dragging our feet so long with this project. I'm ready to get it done. And the way that I see it is if we can give them a 16,000 square foot building, help them out with their burn building, give them a lease on it. Again, I think the county would like to keep the asset, give them a long-term lease on it. I'm ready to go for that. I'm ready to, again, I'm just ready to get the ball rolling. That's my personal opinion. I know every commissioner up here will have a different one, but I'm ready to get it, ready to get the ball rolling, and whatever steps we need to take to get that going. and I see what we'll take them, so.
I'd like to echo Chairman Tate's thoughts in that facility is strategically located and positioned where, in my opinion, there's nobody that could benefit more from it than Southwestern. There's a area beside that building that has been evaluated and deemed to be acceptable to put a fire training facility on. If this board elects to do a 25-year lease, and I'm just pull that out of my hat, versus deeding it, then that's fine too. But I think we've been working on this project for several years. We've got a good fit there in that facility. It will house the fire training facility, and it'll give Southwestern the opportunity to move forward. And I think it carries on with the work that was started before anybody was on this board, and going back to Jerry Sutton and some of those folks that worked very hard to develop Southwestern Community College in Macon County. So I agree with Chairman Tate, and I would like to see this board move forward with the long-term lease that Chairman Tate referred to. I think that's the right thing to do for the university. I think it's the right thing to do for the citizens of Macon County.
Of course, I totally disagree. That's a $2.9 million asset to the people of Macon County that was a gift. If we give that to Southwestern for 25 years, we put another $1 million that makes us responsible for everything they need to service that building. I don't know how much that would be a year. It looks like we have to put about $850,000 on renovations. So now we're at a $3 million project to put you. I thought we was talking about two different things. I thought we was talking about the fire training facility and then the National Guard Armory. I'm totally against the 25-year lease because the people of Macon County will need that building. We have zero for anything we might need it for. And just to give away initially a $3 million building for 25 years, you better put a lot of thought into that. That is for the people of Macon County. And to give them a 25-year lease, I don't care who it is, Southwestern, I'm all for Curtis's classes. We could take money out of our general fund and add on to where Curtis's is now and save a lot of money and preserve for the Macon County citizens a building that we may need. We may need it for the health department in the future. Once you do a 25-year, it's gone forever. And that puts us responsible for it just as if it's ours. But it will not be. But we have to pay for everything. So I don't agree with the chairman and their lame duck commissioner that we should have this conversation, two separate things. You got the fire training facility, which I always thought that was number one. That was the first thing we always talked about. We've got a place to put it. I thought we were in agreement on that, but apparently not. But as far as I'm concerned, we're going to have to really sit down and crunch some numbers before we give away a $2.9 million asset to the folks of Macon County that was given to them. Very unexpectedly, might I add. But it's a building that we've already used during COVID. It's a building that can be renovated to service a lot of county departments in the future. So I would think long and hard, and I'd encourage my fellow board members to think long and hard before you give a building away that you're going to have to still pay all the expenses for in the future. So
you're not going to have to pay all the expenses either way?
Yes, but you can either benefit the citizens of Macon County or you can benefit How many students do you average?
We're way about the citizens.
A few thousand a year? Yeah, but from Macon County. I know if you don't know.
I don't know exactly.
Very few. From Macon County. The benefits of Christ, so.
330 plus firefighters.
Well, you got 284 really. So, so you compare that to the citizens of Macon County, what they could have to do. I'm just saying that is we have something in our hand that we better be very, very careful with. And the people of Macon County deserve us to look at this thing long and hard. And if that's the best way to go, then we can make that decision. But we could build the fire building, the fire training facility. We can fix whatever Curtis might need for classrooms on the same site, in my opinion, and put the money into that and still save a lot of money. Am I right or wrong, County Man?
Well, and that goes back to what I was saying is this original project as proposed, regardless of if it is located at the Jerry Sutton facility, the costs that are going to be incurred, both capital when we're constructing it and operational, are going to be completely different than if we had constructed it on Sila Road. Same thing with the Armory. Now you have to keep in mind this project originally started and still is a burn building, which that's a fixed amount of the purchase of the building, at least for $1.25 million. So we know that amount. And at the time, this metal 2-bay was going to be 2,500 square feet with the classroom space. So we have a burn building and a 2,500 square foot addition, classroom space and storage facility. So if we go to the Jerry Sutton site, we're looking at adding on to a building. If we go to the Armory site, we still have that same $1.25 million burn building, but now the total space that would be that SEC public safety training program, if we do the long-term lease on this National Guard Armory, they're going from 13,760 square feet on 6.3 acres to 29,760 square feet on 12 acres. So they're doubling both the current classroom space as well as the land space to train and do whatever they need to do on outside there. So in saying that, as Commissioner Bill alluded to, this $2.9 million building, I think it then becomes us having the conversation of what is, can that 25-year lease be counted as this $467,000 match that we're required to give? Is that an option? Is it an option? Because at the end of the day, this, with the National Guard Armory, this has became from the request of 2,500 square feet for additional classroom space in a bay, to now doubling the square footage at nearly 30,000 square feet. You have things like, if the Armory's there, if the Armory's in the picture, the fencing at the original project, which was in this $1.3 million, that was $32,000. Again, you're going to have no grading cost. And, so I would almost say at that point, is that classroom facility and 2-bay garage that was once part of this project, is it even required now? You have an Armory with a bay door that it's capable of backing semi-trucks into. So, it has I know there's a building out there that is a tall pole building structure with a roof on it. Could that be used to back the fire trucks on under? It might not be perfect, but many times especially when you're looking at a 2,500 square foot facility versus a 16,000 square foot facility that would be donated, you can't let the perfect outweigh the good. So it comes back down to, I think the first thing we need to do is the board needs to settle on a location and approve that location, and then from there we can then authorize myself to work with Don Thomas and Curtis, no matter where that location is, to develop a cost of this project that is agreeable to Southwestern and agreeable to the county, that represents this, what is now going to be a new project at a new day and time. with a lot of things that were not present at the other side, and a lot of things that might still be present from the other side. But it all comes back to, this is while it is, a new site, that new site, wherever it is, makes this a completely new project that's going to require completely new numbers. Now, are the operational costs associated with the National Guard Armory, our operational contribution to Southwestern Community College, certainly they're going to be more at that building at 16,000 square feet than they are a 2,500 square foot classroom and metal two-bay garage. If the space occupied goes from 13,000 to 15,000, that's not going to be as much of an operational increase as if that goes from 13,000 to 30,000. So all those things are I think, conversations that need to be had, and consideration needs to be given to each of those, just as you gentlemen are doing right now. So long story short, wherever the location that is settled on, in other words, right now, the amended 3-1 at the Jerry Sutton building, if that was the location that's chosen, I would recommend postponing the submittal of the 3-1 and allowing us to sit down and work with Southwestern Community College and get a clear picture in terms of the hard costs that are going to be associated with this project. And the same thing needs to be done if the National Guard Armory is chosen, or if there needs to be more work done and us drill down into these operational costs, what it would cost to upfit the National Guard Armory. I know right now that it's going to have a new roof, and it's going to have an HVAC system put in it. So I know right now those are two substantial improvements that the county is going to have to make regard to that building, regardless of who gets it. But nonetheless, if the direction from this board is to compare these two sites, or if there is a clear decision made on which site is to be selected, I think Macon County needs to be involved in the process of developing this 3-1, and we need to be comfortable with the costs that are going to be passed down to the county, both capital and operational.
Dr. Thomas, does that National Guard Armory facility enhance SCC's curriculum, or?
Yes, and I'll make this comment. We've religiously each year done capital improvement plans requested by the county. That's always been our master plan, which with a 30,000 square foot building that would have been located supposedly on Siler Road. Okay? So, and you'd have the burn building on the other side of where that building would have been. So, in essence, Curtis's program and expansion of what his needs are and the college's needs was a 30,000 square foot building. It would have been brand new over on Siler Road, which would have been a cost to the county at, 30,000 times whatever construction costs are at that time. Where the Armory came in to be really, comparable is because we do have right at 15,000, 14,000, 15,000 square feet where Curtis is at right now. The Armory is about 16,000, so that gives you the 30,000, which offsets the need to build a brand new building at a much more affordable cost to the county at that point in time, which meets Curtis's program expansion needs and the growth that he's experiencing. And so that's the way, when that first came up, it was that win-win opportunity, because we could take that off the capital improvement plan that we submit each year also, because there wouldn't be a need to do that. Plus, as mentioned, it's right there at the campus at this point in time, so it just makes it an ideal type location, and it meets Curtis's goals and needs for expansion.
And you've got a burn building right below it.
Yeah. Yes, we do. We do. That's true.
There is a good site there for a burn building.
It has been identified on that piece of property, on the Armory also, a site location for a burn building there.
So would it make sense, Mr. Manager, for you to appoint somebody like Jack Morgan, who's very familiar with bidding processes, to get? I just think that it would be a wise thing to get how much it's going to cost. Because we know the Armory is going to cost $1 million in renovation. Plus you're losing a $2.9 million asset. You're not losing it, but the vast majority of the Macon County citizens are for the future.
Mr. Chairman, I think that Mr. Manager's brought up some valid points, and he's, more importantly, he's demonstrated that bringing the National Guard Armory into Southwestern purview is following along with the master plan that Southwestern has come up with, and I very much respect Chairman or Commissioner Bill and his opinion on a lot of things, but I think in this case that there's, in my opinion, there's an obvious choice to make, and with that in mind, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that Macon County authorizes county manager and county attorney to enter into negotiations with Southwestern Community College to develop a 25-year lease on the National Guard Armory property for the purpose of expanding their offerings as well as construction of fire training facility.
Second motion.
We have a motion and a second discussion. Commissioner Shields.
I got lost somewhere. When we had our meeting the last time, and I believe in our executive committee meeting in here, we had the burn building, the 2-bay, the classroom, and I believe there was another
Storage.
Storage. I thought we had all that nailed down, and we were going to move forward. I think where I got stuck on this space needs analysis project summary, I thought we were going to go back and look at these 26 items and see how the Armory could accommodate or not accommodate these things here. And so I guess, and y'all, I went out of the Army business, and I just wanted to focus on that because I felt like these 26 items here are going to need to be discussed in our mid-year discussion to see what are you going to do. You know, are you going to use? Is the county going to use the Armory to accommodate some of these things here, or not? I guess I just marked the Armory out for discussion until we went through the mid-year discussion on these 26 items here. And the National Guard Armory is one of the 26 items on this. But go back to what, at our last meeting in here, I thought we kind of ready to go for the burn building, the 2-bay, 1 classroom, and the storage. I thought that was, but I do understand that there's, on the Solid Road, that geographical area is different than where we're at on the college campus. And so I don't have a problem with going back and looking at the college campus and saying, okay, 3.1 or whatever it is, let's look at that. But I feel uncomfortable going into and taking the National Guard Armory, and we've talked a little bit for a lease for that long, without going through this 26 items and seeing if you're going to spend $1 million on the renovating the National Guard Armory, you may need to be incorporating some of these in the National Guard Armory. Or, hey, when we get through this thing and looking at this, then if it's there, then we'll have to make a decision on deeding it, or we'll have to make a decision on leasing it. But we've got 26 buildings out here, or groups of buildings. What are you going to do if you give them away, or if you give this Armory away? If you obligate it, so not that it's not good, but I just think our discussion, our last discussion, I believe, was that before I had a county commissioner meeting that evening, we were locked in on the burn building, the 2-bay, and 1 classroom, and 1 storage, right or wrong. I mean, that was just locked in.
That was the discussion that
Yeah.
we had with you and Mr. Rowland.
Yeah, to move forward
I think Mr. Brothers at that time.
Yeah, to move forward on this piece here and get it done. And that the Armory would be viewed again after we did our mid-year working with our space needs analysis. There's 26 items here. I thought that's where we were. And I think when we discussed it the last time, we had the meeting that evening, then we came here and had a meeting here. I thought we was moving forward on this component of the burn building, the 2 bays, 1 classroom, and the storage unit. And in my mind, it stayed just in that arena, because I thought we were going to review this here after we looked at, see what could, if the Armory could accommodate some of these areas here. And I think we looked at the liability. If we do the liability part or the maintenance part, if we lease it to you, we got both of those, right? We got liability and maintenance.
You'll have maintenance. I think we'll have the liability issue on it because we'll have to have state.
If we get it to you, I believe we're only in we're just in one of them, the liability to the maintenance.
Maintenance is supposed to, because it goes back to 115 D-30 where the county is responsible for the maintenance and operations of those facilities. Whether we own them as an institution and the state owns them, or we lease them, the county would still have the responsibility of maintaining.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to suggest that you have the ability to do this, to table this motion, to at least give the county attorney an opportunity to do what he outlined to do. If you remember what he said, that he would like to have the opportunity to look a little deeper into all the numbers that it's really going to cost the county, and he may come back with that the National Guard Armory is the ideal place. I don't know that, but I think we should give our county manager the opportunity to do that, working with SCC, working with our building department, working with our folks. I think that would be just the right thing to do. We shouldn't get in no hurry now. We've not been in no hurry in a long, long time. So there's no hurry now, and I agree with Mr. Shields. That is exactly what we talked about. And to enter into this thing, we will have a new commissioner sitting where Mr. Gillespie is. He needs to be brought up to speed. And to enter into an agreement like this without even pursuing what the county manager, however it goes, should be given the opportunity to pursue these different options. That's my opinion, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Ronnie, maybe I'm biased because I'm a Southwestern graduate. Maybe I'm biased because when I worked for the county for 15 years, I saw exactly how many of our county employees were graduates of Southwestern Community College. So I've been thinking about this for months on end since we've learned we got the Armory. And to me, it makes no other sense for the county to have anything out there at this point other than Southwestern. I think Southwestern Community College will be a tremendous asset to Macon County. And I would love to see it expand. I'd love to see it expand beyond the services that they offer now. We've talked about trade schools. We've talked about a lot of different things. So I'm for moving forward with this. And again, as I mentioned earlier, gosh, it's like every time we look for another excuse. I'm ready to stop dragging the excuses out and let's just get the ball rolling. So I'm ready. Does that? I mean, I'm asking y'all. Is that building if we go forward with this?
Well,
Does it meet or are we? I mean, I would like an honest answer.
It is. I mean, when you're talking about military 210th that was out there, the equipment that they had, the spaces that they utilized are things that public safety mirrors and that we utilize those same spaces. So renovation within is very minimal. we can use office space, other, sprucing up some paint and stuff like that. But when you're talking about a gun safe storage out there because of the equipment that we're mandated to have to offer the different programs, that we can move in and with, little effort, repair it and start training public safety professionals tomorrow, utilizing the space. The Armory, we had a partnership with them before they left the National Guard to where we would go over and use the gymnasium when they didn't have equipment in it for different things, and use the surrounding properties for different scenarios that we had. My team at Public Safety Training is excited about the possibilities and what they can do and the growth we have, the potential for doing out there as well.
$3 million, they ought to be excited.
Well, we are, we're grateful as well.
For $3 million, they ought to be tickled to death.
And we are, and I'm sure the public safety professionals that serve in Macon County and our area would be grateful as well. I know each of us have had the opportunity.
We're not talking about doing away with it. We're talking about adding, is giving you 30,000 feet to where you're at now.
I'm answering the question that, can we use it? Absolutely.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you.
Any further comments, questions, Mr. Manager?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, yes, I think this does, if the board moves forward with the motion in the second that's been on the table, and this is the location that is chosen, I think we need a couple things we need to think about. A couple of questions that need to be answered is, does this $2.9 million asset that we're going to be leasing, long-term lease, does that fulfill our $467,000 match requirement required by the NC Connect bond? That's one thing I'd like to know. And if so, if that fulfills our matching requirement, we've been provided the information that indicates that they can spend $1.4 million in bond money. They can spend that money first. The latest quote we have on that burn building structure, which is what this money would go to fund, is $1.25 million. So with that being said, at this point, the donation of, or the lease of that facility to Southwestern, should that satisfy that requirement, I then think we revise the 3-1 to reflect that and that alone. And as far as if we lease it, the county is still going to be the owner of that facility. So then I think we're at a point where the county can do any construction, any capital improvements. The county can oversee and conduct any capital improvements or renovations that need to be made to the National Guard Armory. And again, while that $1.3 million has been appropriated from fund balance, that appropriation sitting there, and with it no longer being required for the match, I would say that those funds could then be used to make what we deem to be the improvements that are needed and necessary to get this building, to get the National Guard Armory functional. So that would be.
That's what I was saying.
And you would oversee, the county would oversee.
The county would oversee the renovation of the Armory as we own the building, if this is the direction that the board chooses to go.
I guess my question still is, when Mosley did the space needs analysis, that gentleman was standing right there, he said, y'all need to go back and review these 26 areas here to see what space you need and what space you don't need. We haven't done that yet. And I was assuming we were going to do it January, when you look at everything else like that. And I think that's what I've said before. Curtis needs this building. I'll tell you right up front, he needs it. I've been out there with him, we've looked at it, but I feel like there's a commitment here to our taxpayers that we should look at these 26 items to see what we're going to do with these items. And if they don't fit in the Armory, then I think you've got a case to renovate it, do what you're going to do. I don't know what to do with these items here that they marked and said, look, you're going to have to make a decision about these. And so, and if that leaves us, if that facility leaves us, you say, well, we could put these in here. Well, that horse is out of the barn. But we haven't had that discussion yet. I think the pandemic may have taken that away from us last year, but it's still there.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point in that that building, you could go through and certainly with the county manager's help cherry pick that list and place several different groups in that building. But that still doesn't change the fact that that building is strategically located right around Southwestern Community College. It falls within the square footage of the master plan of Southwestern Community College, and it's a perfect fit. So I think at some point, and I'm not in favor of going back and rehashing that at this point to make this decision, but at some point, there's going to have to, this board minus me is going to have to make some decisions about that, about where stuff's going to go and place it. But for the purpose of this discussion, I think that the motion that I've made is the right thing to do for the citizens of Macon County and for Southwestern Community College, because it provides them a facility that is located within their basically existing footprint, and it gives them the square footage that is called for in their master plan. So I just go back to my original motion.
And it's not 2 or 3 years to build.
And
it's ready to go.
We can move on.
What's that worth? So.
Any further comments?
I'll just reiterate for the record that, in my opinion, that we should give the county manager an opportunity, because this is new information he brought tonight. And we should give him an opportunity to look at that and put it on our January schedule when we see where the money is. It's just too big of a decision. I mean, that's not what we discussed at all. So, but if you got the votes, go for it.
All in favor, signify by
I'd choke up too, Paul.
That's a non-COVID cough.
all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, you got that, Mike?
Yes.
Name them out?
Yes.
You got it. All right, thanks, gentlemen.
And we would,
Thank you, Dr. Charles.
Thank you.
we would ask that would be,
And congratulations.
the minutes
That
reflect
was easy.
all conversation now, because we will be looking at it again.
Lease agreement with AG1. You're up, Mr. Jenkins. Appreciate your patience with us.
They just give away the Army building.
We're on to the next
For
side,
nothing.
Commissioner.
Thank you, gentlemen. Entertaining evening. Got a couple of leases up for renewal in the Macon County Business Development Center. One is AG1, which is Appalachian Growers, which is in the CBD business. This will be their second year. And COVID-19 has set back a little bit, but they're at 7 employees now and looking at growing some in the future. So I think they're on track for where they need to be. That lease amount will still remain at $1,840 a month. So, you want to do these together, or do you want to do them separately?
Let's do them separate. Can we get an approval on the lease agreement with AG1?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Higdon, second by Commissioner Gillespie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second one is for Tico SSL, which is solid state lighting. They've got the 900-foot space, and then they've got the front office. And they've, this year, of course, COVID was a little rough on them, but they have just landed a project with Toyota to supply some lights from one of their facilities. They're in negotiations with several others.
Wow.
They're in their second year also. So.
Can we get a motion to approve the lease agreement with Teco SSL?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Bill.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Higdon. All in favor?
Aye.
One question.
Thank you, Tom.
Tom?
Question. Hang on a second.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Still stuck on the lease. I believe I read in here, 1 year or 2 years.
It's a 1-year lease, but the county actually has a 30-day out. So if,
I'm just stuck on lease.
As you should be.
it's not a 25-year lease.
Do you know if AG1's product, how much of the product that they're using to manufacture their finished product with is manufactured in Macon County?
You mean they're processing? I'm not
How much
sure.
do they grow? How much is being grown
Oh, how
in
much
Macon
is
County?
grown? I know they grow somewhat in Macon County. I don't have a definite number, but I can
About
find
10
that
acres, I
for
think.
you. Yeah,
was
there's
just
10
curious.
acres on,
Related.
yeah, on Raby, but I don't know if they're harvesting additional from other growers or what.
Thank you, sir.
I'll, Carl, I'll look that up for you, and see if I can get a percent on it.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Resolution authorizing upset bid process for panoramic X-ray machine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This goes back to the dental equipment that was part of the adult dental clinic that we ceased operations at during this fiscal year. The equipment, as you know, is stored at the Armory, and we had an auction where the majority of that equipment was sold. Proudly to say that auction made sure that that equipment went where it needed to go, and that was our local dentist here in Macon County. We did have a panoramic X-ray machine in that equipment that was not bid upon at the auction. None of the local bidders placed a bid in for that piece of equipment. Since then, a local dentist has shown interest in that equipment, and in doing so has submitted an offer to the county of $4,000 and has since made a 5% deposit on his offer as required by the general statute that authorizes the upset bid process. So with that being said, to move forward with this, we will need to approve this resolution that authorizes the upset bid process. So essentially that bid has been submitted by the local dentist. Now that bid will be advertised with an upset period, and if that bid is not upset, then the bid submitted for $4,000 will allow that X-ray machine to go.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Shields. Mr. Manager, I presume that's your recommendation on how we...
Yes, sir.
How we proceed, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Hazard pay, Mr. Rowland.
Sir, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start by the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in the moments of comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. And that's a quote by the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And to piggyback off that, we always talk about the employees of this organization and how they're our greatest asset. And during all this time, this truth has never became more evident to me personally during the past 8 months, as our county, state, and nation have continued to deal with one of the greatest challenges this country's ever faced. And as Macon County Manager, I can assure you that no department in this organization has been spared from the challenges and the challenging times that have been brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. But since day one that this pandemic started, the men and women in every county department, they've stood strong. They've stood in the gap and made up the hedge. They've remained dedicated to the mission of this organization, which is to provide the highest level of public service to the citizens of this county. And it is because of this effort of these men and women in this organization and their tremendous, their willingness to continue going above and beyond that we have been able to confront, thus far successfully mitigate, and I feel with 100% confidence we'll be able to eventually overcome the COVID-19 pandemic in Macon County. And I'd be remiss in talking about these employees if I didn't start with talking about those brave men and women that are on the front lines. And that is the men and women in emergency management, our sheriff's office, our health department, that day in and day out, the nature of their jobs, of what they do for the citizens of Macon County, requires them to risk their personal health and their personal safety, as well as the personal health and safety of their families. But nevertheless, they continue to suit up, they continue to come in, They continue to place the health and safety of the citizens of Macon County above that of themselves. And at this time, I'd like to personally just recognize Kathy and Warren, as well as the sheriff, who have and continue to lead what I'll refer to as a first-class mitigation effort in Macon County in terms of combating the COVID-19 pandemic. I challenge anyone to find a rural community in this state who has ran a more coordinated, thorough, and transparent mitigation effort than that has been ran by these departments I have just mentioned in Macon County. In addition to a first-class mitigation effort, a first-class effort from all other departments has enabled this organization to continue operating and providing without interruption the critical public services upon which the citizens of this county depend. Departments such as our maintenance department, doing things like taking action early, going ahead and stockpiling cleaning supplies, disinfectants, paper products that we saw eventually become unavailable during the height of the spring months and the height of this COVID-19 pandemic. Departments like the garage had the same foresight. They stockpiled on supplies for our fleet, such as oil, tires, so that a disruption in a national supply chain would not result in a local ambulance having to come offline during this pandemic. Our maintenance department, through enhanced sanitation efforts, has ensured that our facilities, again, continue to remain open and allow us to conduct the business of this county on which not only our citizens but our local economy relies upon. In many instances, this requires the custodians to go into office spaces after hours, disinfecting the work site of a coworker who's been diagnosed with COVID-19. Again, posing risk to themselves, but nonetheless, they do it, they go in there and they do their job, they do it well, and it allows that office to open the next day for uninterrupted business. Maintenance departments installed plexiglass shields in all service departments that have served to protect both the employees as well as the customers coming into those departments, and again, allowed this organization to stay open and conduct business. Senior services, when you talk about senior services, you're looking at a department that has restructured their entire meal delivery system as a result of this pandemic. They went from a congregate meal setting to a drive-through setting. And in doing this, it enabled us to continue providing this extremely important service in not only a safe, but an efficient manner to those citizens that have been deemed most vulnerable to the COVID-19 pandemic. Not only did they continue providing this service, but they provided it in the face of an exponential increase in demand. When you compare the months of March and August in 2019 to the months of March through August in 2020 and the number of meals that were served by the senior center, they served nearly 200% more meals in this drive-through setting than they did the previous year in 2019. Home delivered meals increased exponentially as well, and we would not have been able to keep up with this exponential increase had it not been for departments like the transit department, who piggybacked in with senior services and helped to deliver those meals out in our community using the transit vehicles. And while we're on transit, the COVID-19 pandemic has not caused people to stop going to the doctor, people to stop going to work. And had it not been for these brave men and women driving these transit vehicles, there were mitigation measures put in place as well. They disinfect these vehicles after the passengers leave. They've installed plexiglass barriers in these transit vehicles to make a safer riding environment. And still and yet, they're the ones that transport these folks that are needing to go to work and needing to go to their occupation day in and day out. Information technology. Our IT department's been a key component in our ability to continue providing services. They've made it possible for our employees that have needed to work remotely. This has required the configuration, testing, and continual maintenance on approximately 60 different workstations that have been set up to be used remotely from employees by home. There's also been an increased need for security. We saw cyber attacks across the board, and you've read about it in the newspaper. But during the COVID-19 pandemic, cyber attacks on local government organizations have increased tenfold, and our IT staff continues to work to prevent those and does a great job doing it. Finance and HR, they've had to learn from scratch and successfully implement and track completely new programs that before March of 2020 we had never even heard of. I'm talking about programs like the COVID sick leave, the emergency FMLA, monitoring CARES Act funding requests from numerous departments and outside organizations, overseeing CARES Act funding reimbursement. Most recently, departments like our Macon County Board of Elections office have successfully and safely administered the 2020 presidential election, during which we experienced a record voter turnout. And I have received numerous phone calls from members throughout the community that have complimented on how smoothly and efficiently that this 2020 election process was ran. And aside from the record turnout in the vote in the Board of Elections, many other service departments within the organization have experienced dramatic increases in service demand. Much to our surprise, the COVID-19 pandemic has led to increases in the number of building permits issued in the inspections departments. In addition, we've recorded record-breaking highs month after month with respect to the number of deeds and plats that have came through Macon County to be recorded. In October alone, we collected $236,633 in receipts from recordations of plats and deeds in the Register of Deeds office. I could go on all day long providing you specific examples of the challenges that COVID-19 has brought about to each department, and I've highlighted a few of those. I could also go on I could go on for days talking about how I personally witnessed sacrifices that have been made by employees, whether it's that mother that's child is learning virtually now, and she's now having to bring that kid to work with her, or to work with that child in a remote environment, still doing work for the county while also assisting that child with remote learning. Or the workers that stepped up to fill in whenever one coworker, two coworkers, three coworkers went out with COVID-19, that have stepped up to fill in that void left by those people having to go out. But more importantly, I can sit here and provide specific examples of how each department in this organization has been able to overcome these challenges. And in doing so, like I said, we have been able to continue conducting the business of this county without interruption of those essential services that the citizens of Macon County rely upon, as well as our local economy. I can recall one point during the pandemic, there was a survey sent out on the listserv, the manager's listserv that goes to the managers of the counties and managers of towns across the state of North Carolina. And the best I recall, there was over 150 responses, and out of those, about 80% of the respondents to that survey indicated that the offices were closed. And most recently, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, there was a manager put that same question out on the listserv. And out of the 20 respondents to that question, about 18 of them indicated that the offices still remain closed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I say all that to say that as Macon County manager, I've never been more proud to be a part of this organization. I've never been more proud of the employees of this organization who have chosen to stand in as leaders during this most challenging time that this county, state, or nation has ever faced. And it continues to be an honor to work alongside each and every one of you. I just want you to know that. Many department heads, the sheriff has been up here and discussed it. Kathy's discussed it most recently. You heard members from the Board of Health come up here tonight and discuss. Members from the Board of Elections have discussed, because they've recognized these department heads and the boards that oversee these departments, they've recognized the hard work, sacrifices, and dedication, just as I have, of the Macon County employees throughout this COVID-19 pandemic. And in recognizing this, they've spoken to me, they've spoken to this board, and it's never been about them as individuals. These boards have nothing to gain from it. These department heads have never once mentioned themselves, always mentioned their employees. That's because they see day in and day out the sacrifices they make. I can't commend them enough for that. Whether it be a board, whether it be a department head, that's their job. And, you know, my answer when these requests have been presented to me has been consistent in that we needed to wait until more economic certainty related to COVID-19 pandemic was available. And at such time, pardon me, at such time that this certainty became available, we could then be able to discuss a solution in terms of additional compensation, hazard pay, whatever you might call it. And when we discussed that, the answer that I would give also included that the solution needed to be equitable and it needed to recognize efforts across the organization that every department has had to undergo because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm proud to inform the board tonight that I feel like we have reached that point. The financial certainty which I talked about has been brought about through the CARES Act funding, as it has allowed us to claim $364,735 in salary and fringe benefits of substantially dedicated workers under the CARES Act legislation during the months of June through September. So during the months of June through September, we've been able to, June through September, July through September, we've been able to claim those $364,000 in payroll costs that were budgeted in county funds at the beginning of the year. Now, what will happen as a result? This $364,000 of county money will roll into fund balance at year end. So with that being said, I would recommend appropriating $328,037 from fund balance in the general fund and $22,181 from solid waste fund balance to go towards a one-time hazard payment of $750 to all active full-time employees hired on or before October the 26th, and a $150 one-time hazard payment to all active and part-time employees hired on or before November 30th, 2019, who have worked 500 hours or more during the 2020 calendar year. And when we consider this, I want to be clear, this hazard payment is not funded through CARES Act funds. This hazard payment to Macon County employees is funded using county funds, as I alluded to. It is a one-time payment. It will have a net zero impact on the current fiscal year budget, and it will have a net zero impact on the fiscal year 21 budget. So with that being said, I would respectfully request, Mr. Chairman, that the board give consideration to approving this as I outlined.
Mr. Manager, this would not interfere with the Christmas bonus that we give every year.
No.
This is above and beyond, correct?
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve is presented, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bill.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shields. Discussion. I'm sure we'd all like to speak on this.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
I was just going to say, Derek, I mean, you look at the, and that's very well stated as usual, by the way, that you look at the things that you can take this money in these times and spend it on. And I don't think, as a leader, there's anyone that I'd rather spend it on than the employees that are taking care of this county and what they're doing. So I think it's a great recommendation, and I'll support it.
And what Derek left out is one really important thing, that we were one of the few counties in the state, after the conference call yesterday, that kept all the departments open. We're one of the few. So, a lot did not.
Town of Highlands just did, what did they do? You remember offhand?
Raise taxes?
No, they just did something very similar.
Yeah, I think Highlands chose to double their Christmas bonus, maybe.
Double the Christmas bonus. Town of Highlands ain't got to worry about raising taxes with what real estate's doing up there. They're going to double it.
Revalid.
Oh my gosh. Go ahead. Sorry.
I agree with you, Derek. People have gone above and beyond. But when we hire county employees, we hire you to perform a service in good times and bad times. It's just like me hiring someone to run one of my backhoes, good or bad. and I'm speaking on behalf of the private sector. I work with people in the private sector, and I'm not here to represent the Board of Elections, the Sheriff's Office, the Board of Health, or anybody. I appreciate those committees fighting to get more compensation for their employees. Everybody wants to make more money. Those in the private sector have no guarantees. They have no hazard pay. The benefits that they got through the CARES Act, the same thing came to public employees. And so a lot of people in the private sector were sent home with no income. I don't know of one county employee that has not received a regular paycheck. Nobody in the private sector got 80 hours of emergency pay leave to compensate them if they were quarantined because of COVID. So there's a lot of benefits in public sector work. I used to be in it, and I do appreciate, I think, the efforts of everybody has kept this thing at the case fatality that we have now. It's the numbers, although tragic, they're better than some, comparably speaking. But no one in the private sector has enjoyed the benefits that have been afforded the public sector employees. And I'm not downgrading y'all. I appreciate what y'all do. But the other thing is the part-time employees. I think of the people at the convenience centers. You're talking about full-time. I didn't follow that completely, Derek, on the qualifications for this hazard pay.
Yes, for the
full-time.
Full-time, $750.
$750, hired on or before October 26th.
2020.
Okay.
The part-time Paul's $150, and like you said, the convenience center workers, I don't recall the list from memory, but there was a whole lot on the list that we've calculated they qualified for.
They're part-time. If they were hired, the part-time were hired before
November 30th of 2019 and have worked 500 hours during the calendar year 2020, which is the same criteria we use as a Christmas bonus. So, like I said, I can't tell you the exact number, but I know there was a laundry list of those part-time convenience center workers that qualified for that $150.
I think that's.
I think the strength, one of the strengths of Macon County is how you treat your employees. I guess my only thoughts are, and I'm not criticizing Derek one bit when I say this, because I certainly don't know how to do it, but when I do have some, and I'm not taking away from anybody when I say this, but just go by the recycle center, and I see those folks at that recycle center every day standing there greeting ever sneezing somebody that's coming through Holly Springs community, and think about the exposure that they're getting. And I just want to make sure that we're fair to those folks, that we're fair to the deputy that is unable to properly protect himself or herself because of the type job they do, for the exposure that, I mean, you can go on and on with different examples, but I think it's a fair thing to do. My only concern is I just wouldn't want any county employee that felt like that they consistently got more exposure, that they didn't feel like they'd been compensated fairly. With all that being said, I don't know a better way to do it than what you've done, but that's my only comment.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Or Mr. Shields, do you have anything to say? I'm sorry.
No.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I think we also had a question tonight, Mr. Manager, about from the Board of Health about how you handle your salary employees. Now, I know they're going to get this bonus, obviously, but I think you also need to consider, if you want to bring that up in our next meeting, I think we'd all be ready to at least hear options, and if not, on how you want to handle that.
And I will say that this is what I have proposed to handle that. You know, there's requests from the Board of Health, there's requests from other departments that, you know, that again, you know, some of these, when you start getting into, number one, when you start compensating the salaried employees for overtime costs, I think you're getting into a very dangerous area. You're getting on a slippery slope there. It's going to be hard to draw a line. It's going to be hard to stop whenever you'll have department heads that are salaried and individuals that are salaried in departments such as emergency management, such as the sheriff's office, such as, you know, folks that I mentioned in the maintenance office. You know, it's just, this is, as I stated, you know, the answer that I always give to department heads like the Board of Health, the health director, and those people that came before posing this question was that whenever there was financial certainty related to this COVID-19 pandemic, which came in the form of this $364,000 that we were able to offset in payroll cost, whenever there was certainty brought there, and then whenever there was an equitable solution that could be organization-wide, then I would feel comfortable proposing a solution. And at this time, with under those circumstances, as far as the additional compensation for hazard pay related to CARES Act, this is representative, unless the board tells me to do something different, of that compensation for that hazard pay in its entirety across the organization.
I know we're going to be I know this, you know it too, because we've discussed it. This is going to be a huge topic of discussion as we move into next year's budget, as it comes into, in particular, the sheriff's department and some of these other departments, with how we compensate our employees fairly, so that we're not continually having our employees, quote, poached by our surrounding agencies. So I'm looking forward to having that discussion and making sure we're on par where we need to be to treating these people like they should be. So.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anything else before we move on to the consent agenda?
Was that vote unanimous?
Yes, it was.
No, I didn't vote.
Yeah, you did.
No.
You didn't? You did too, didn't you? Did I miss it? You voted, didn't you?
You didn't give an opportunity?
Sorry.
No, I'll vote no.
Okay.
It wasn't.
Sorry, Mike. I thought I saw you nod your head. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I didn't catch that. Consent agenda. Mike, did you catch that, by the way? Because I completely missed it.
No.
You got it now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I sent you a bill.
Thank you. All right, consent agenda, including the holiday schedule. Can we get a motion to approve?
Motion be approved as presented.
Motion by Commissioner Shields. Second by Commissioner Gillespie. All in favor? Appointments, we have, let's go ahead and do the community funding poll first. Tyler Shook, Emily Ritter, Robert Shook, Andrea Anderson, Robert Smith, Sheila Jenkins, Patrick Betancourt, Jennifer Jones, Karen Wallace, Bobby Contino, Diane Cotton, Kyle Garner, and Rick Westerman. The appointment of the remaining member of the task force, Karen Stywiner, expires in December. So I presume we're approving everybody, including Karen, because she's in December. So.
Mr. Chairman, I think that would be by far the simplest and most
Can we
straightforward.
get a motion to approve these?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Bill. Second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor? Do we have an update on the second one? It says the terms of...
Yes, sir, we do. I spoke with Mr. Jenkins just before the meeting, and he updated me. The three that would be asked for the board to consider tonight would be the reappointment of Jim Breedlove to the EDC, representing the Franklin Area Chamber of Commerce, Barbara McRae, representing the town of Highlands, and Brett Murphy as a at-large member.
Franklin. Barbara McRae will be town.
She moved to Highland.
Bill Future will be town of Highlands.
I apologize. Did I misspeak? I'm sorry.
You said Barbara McCray representing Town of Highlands.
Town of Franklin.
Town of Franklin.
I was looking at something in Highlands was right below it. I apologize.
So can we get a motion to approve? Okay, motion by Commissioner Gillespie. Second by Commissioner Bill. All in favor? Aye. I do understand there is reason for a closed session for purpose of attorney-client privilege.
Make a motion, we go into closed session
Motion by
under
Commissioner,
the
motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Gillespie. All in favor? Aye. Are we expecting any action, Mr. Manager?
No, sir.
No action.
Sure.
We're just going to be.
For this long, this one. It's been a while since there. Good to see you.
Yeah.